1 2 1 2. Bring me up pretty hot. 1 2 1 2. Microphone check. Hey hey. Welcome. Speech microphone 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2 1 2. Audio check 1 2. Hey hey. Microphone check 1 2. Bring me up. Bring me up. 1 2 1 2. And I think you can cut a little bit of the bass if you want to. Cutting bass, 1 2 1 2, check 1 2. Audio check 1 2 1 2. Hey hey, check 1 2. Isaac, I think we're good.
And for that we have each other, and we will rise, we will rise, we'll rise, we'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day, I'll rise up in spite of the age. I will rise 1,000 times again, and we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up, and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Right on. Right on. Right. Everybody thinks we're at home. Oh, but who are they to judge us? Simply cause our hair is long. Oh, you know we've got to find. Bring some understanding here today. Oh, oh, oh. Pick it loud and pick it sound. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me. You can see what's going on. Yeah, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Ooh. Right on, right on. Right on.
Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon formed against us, glory is destined. Every day women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom's like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all, just ain't specific enough. One son died, his spirit is revisiting us. Truant living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots we on the ground, the camera panned up. King pointed to the mountaintop, and we ran up.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war's won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory, glory. Glory, oh, glory, glory. Now the war is not over, victory isn't won, and we'll fight on to the finish. Then when it's all done, we'll cry glory, oh, glory, oh, oh. We'll cry glory, oh, glory, oh, oh.
Selma's now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads, he rose to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemies lethal, a king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing, our music is the cuss that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. No one can win the war individually. It take the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours. It'll be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh, glory, glory, glory. Oh, glory, glory.
That was amazing. Good morning, Parker. My name is Joanne Sith, your Associate Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. Yesterday was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and what timing that today we get to celebrate his legacy. We shall take a moment to reflect on the profound impact he has had on our nation and the world, and remember the values he stood for, a message that is just as relevant today as it was during the Civil Rights Movement. So let us gather as a community to both be reminded of the legacy and the icon of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and to heed the call of action of his unfinished work. It is because of his work that we all get to dream. We get to live in a world of hopeful possibilities. We get to engage with the diverse students that make up Parker. We get to sit in this very assembly with one another. We all get to vote, or will be able to vote. We even get to eat lunch together. We get to use our voices to openly advocate for injustice and equality. And we get to even have this day of service in honor of MLK Jr. But this day in itself was not easy to achieve. Just 4 days after MLK was assassinated, legislation to make King's birthday a federal holiday was introduced in 1968. From then, it took 15 years before President Reagan signed the King Holiday Bill into law, and until the year 2000 for every state to acknowledge it. MLK Day is the only federal holiday designated as a national day of service to encourage all Americans to volunteer and improve their communities. Therefore, Parker, we get to have this day because of the persistent efforts of MLK and his fellow civil rights disruptors, allies, and advocates. So I want to remind us all that on Monday and beyond, MLK Day is a day on, not a day off. I know it can be easy to look back at the giants of the civil rights movement and forget that these ordinary folk who led the march toward justice were young. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was only 26 years old the day he stood beside Rosa Parks and delivered a speech urging thousands in Montgomery to boycott the buses and continue reaching out for the daybreak of freedom and justice and equality. John Lewis was a mere 23 when he was one of the big 6 leaders that helped plan the March on Washington and the youngest speaker at the event. Diane Nash was 22 years old when she climbed the courthouse steps and impelled Nashville's mayor to desegregate the city's lunch counters. Even Ruby Bridges, at the age of 6, faced angry mobs as she was escorted into William Franz Elementary School. The fight for equality and justice is not for one race and age group to champion, but for all of us to uphold. It is not just a personal struggle, it's a collective responsibility. When we see discrimination or inequality, it's not just someone else's problem. It affects us all. So as students of this great institution and nation, you hold the power to bring about change, to stand up against injustice, and to continue to foster a culture of love, justice, inclusion, and respect. While we have made significant progress since Dr. King's time, we still face challenges that threaten the ideals of equality and justice. Progress, my friends, is precious and can be fragile. Progress can easily regress. But let us remember that Dr. King's legacy is not only about acknowledging these challenges, but also taking action to confront them. So remember MLK's words. Everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. So as we continue with our MLK Assembly program, I encourage you to take this moment to reflect and ask yourself, how can you continue MLK's unfinished work? How can you serve in an impactful way that centers others than self? Amanda Gorman, at age 16, was named the first ever National Youth Poet Laureate, and at the age of 22, became the 6th and youngest poet to deliver a poetry reading at a presidential inauguration. As a young activist, she uses poetry to advocate for social justice, and she will be our inspiration for our next performance. Our lower, middle, and upper school student leaders will recite 2 poems from her, Change Sings and The Hill We Climb. Please give a warm Parker welcome to our student leaders.
I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along.
I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I am a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings.
Though some don't understand it, those windmill mysteries, I sing with all the planet and its hills of histories.
I hum with 100 hearts, I use my strengths and my smarts. Each of us lifting a hand, take a knee to make a stand. I'm bright as the light each day brings.
There is love where my change sings.
I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge.
I talk not only of distances from where and how we came, I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs.
There's a wave where my change sings.
Change sings where?
There, inside me, because I am the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the waves starting to spring.
For we are the change we sing.
We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear chains strumming.
Won't you sing along?
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wait. We've braved the valley of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn was ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished.
We, the successors of a country, in a time where Amanda Gorman, who descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming a president, only to find herself reciting for one. And, yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to form a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man.
So we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We know to close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. Even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we were tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together victorious. Not because we'll never again know defeat, but because we'll never again sow division.
Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one should make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promise to Glade, the hill we climb if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, that would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy, and this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can periodically be delayed, it can never be permanently defeated.
In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared in its inception, we did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour. Within it, we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. And while we once asked, how can we possibly prevail over catastrophe, now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us?
We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know that our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright.
So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the golden hills of the west. We will rise from the wind-swept northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked south. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. And when the day comes, we will step out of the shade of flame, and unafraid, the new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light if we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. I know I am. But the real question is, are all of you? Ready? One more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We're brave enough to be it.
Everyone, again, let's give them a big round of applause. All right, everyone, we are going to get, when I say collective responsibility, in terms of, again, continuing MLK's unfinished work, we're going to be literally having you guys think about what can you do? What is it that you're going to do? I know it's cliche to say, but like it is true. You guys are mapping the pathway to finish what MLK started, okay? So we're gonna engage in a Parker JK through 12 MLK Art Dream Project. I wanna give a big shout out to Mr. O. Mr. O, come forward. Come forward, Mr. O, Mr. O, Mr. O. Mr. O and his class. I just wanna give you a little brief history. Ms. Sith was like, this is what I want, this is what I want. And I literally went to Mr. O and was like, Mr. O, what do you think? Blah, 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 blah. And this is the magic of him, because he ended up creating an image on the left. If you're looking at the screen, the left is the word dream. And now engaging all of Parker to think about your part in our MLK Dream Project. So as we move on to this part, I want you to think as you are coming up, and literally what you're gonna be doing quietly. This is about like some self-reflection time, okay? You're gonna quietly come up, line up. You'll have a little cup of paint. You'll put your thumb or index finger, dip a small amount of paint, and literally put your mark on the canvas, okay? So everyone's gonna come in, and you'll put a mark on this canvas, then you'll use a wet wipe to clean off the paint, and at that point, please, I don't want to see people putting paint on each other, or putting it on your face, or putting it anywhere except for on the canvas, wiping it off on a wet wipe, and you will be returning back to your seat to pay attention to what's on the screen. Okay, Christy, can you go back to the other side? Because guys, settle. As you do this, I really want you to take a literal retrospective look at like what you have. What are your assets? What are your resources? What are your passions? And as you come up, I want you to think about this as a representation of a promise you're making. A promise, a hope, a dream, and a literal act. Call it a pledge, call it a promise. Just know that this canvas will always be here with your fingerprints on it. So at this point, everyone else in this space, if you're not lined up, you'll be watching some MLK video clips, and you'll also be listening to some songs that were inspired and born because of who he is. Okay. So I'm going to have my student leaders come up first. Danielle was there. And then Mr. Howard.
So the line's going to start here, where I am, and it's going to snake for middle school, and those of you who are here, going to go to the left, and then on the upper school side, it's going to go to your side, to the right, okay? So we'll start right here, get some paint, and then we'll have the wet wipes at the end and put them in the garbage can. You come over here, okay. And then wet wipe.
I remember the day when the March on Washington was all over. We went back down to the White House. President Kennedy invited us back down. And he stood in the door of the Oval Office and greeted each one of us. He was like a proud, beaming father that everything had gone so well.
For months after that, we just all really harvested the emotional joy of what we had done.
The joy that we took home with us out of that arena inspired us to start thinking about what could we do beyond what we were doing already. And the lesson is not to stop, not to give up.
If you ask us back then that Barack Obama would be in the White House today, we would say no way.
Hey, everyone else in the audience, I know this is visually disruptive, but I need everyone else in the audience who's not in line to remain as quiet as possible.
Back to the heart of the Deep South, to intensify efforts.
And those in line
to gain the vote,
I need you to be quiet.
To get a civil rights bill passed. But 18 days after the march, it was a terrible bombing of the church in Birmingham, where 4 little girls were killed on a Sunday morning. It was a sad and dark hour for the movement. But it said to us that we had more work to do.
It's odd to say, but it encouraged us more. These people are reacting this way against us because we're being effective. And so we're going to keep on doing it. We're going to do even more if we can. We won't let this stop us. We won't let this turn us around.
We did get the Civil Rights Bill. Eventually, we did get a Voting Rights Act. But the quality of life for many people remained the same for many, many years.
One of the ways to really stop a movement is to kill off its thinkers. And they killed Dr. King, and they killed Medgar Evers, and they killed Bobby Kennedy and John Kennedy. All this was in one fell swoop eliminated.
After the Civil Rights Movement, which moved into the anti-war movement, other movements were gaining enormous energy. So the women's movement, the environmental movement took shape, the anti-apartheid movement, and the will and the belief that they could be successful emanated from the remarkable ability of the civil rights movement to progress.
I recognized very quickly that the young people and other people who were in the Occupy Wall Street movement, they were the stepchildren of Martin Luther King Jr.
Please don't let me
They were the
ask one more
stepchildren
time,
of
y'all.
the March on Washington.
I'm asking for this to
They
be a
were
moment
trying
that's
to raise
somber,
the consciousness
that's about
of the country
reflection.
to the inequitable distribution of wealth opportunities, very
So I'm
much in the
asking
same way
for some
that he was trying
quiet.
to do it.
We need people to lead, to get out front on some of the big issues, and to be a headlight and not a taillight. And people who are speaking up today for immigration reform, for gay rights, control of the proliferation of guns, they are showing some courage.
The action of the Supreme Court 5 in gutting the essence of the Voting Rights Act, it's an enormous reversal. It's been one of the most successful pieces of legislation in modern history. Enormous change takes time, and you have to continue to battle. You don't win a lawsuit or win getting a law on the books and then fold your tents and go home. Oh no, the struggle continues.
I was part of this mobilization that has never been duplicated again, and I wonder why. I'm not blaming young people. Well, yes, I am. But they ought to be doing a bit more.
I really thought that feeling around Obama was so important, to know that it existed. I, in retrospect, wish that we'd managed to keep him from running for office, because he could have run a movement. I think he would have had a better chance at making social change happen if he had approached it, and the way King did.
What I say to a lot of young people who speak about the fact that the civil rights movement is somehow a thing of the past, I say, let me paint a picture for you. Almost all the movement in that period, almost all critical thought, almost all critical decisions were made by the young. And if you want to take a look at John Lewis and where he was 18. You take a look at Julian Bond, he was 18. If you take a look at Diane Nash, she was pregnant and leading a movement. She was the one that designed the Freedom Ride. And none of these people came with political design and with clear thought. No. These were simple, ordinary folk. And when young people say, where do we find our leaders? Where are the Dr. Kings? Well, look where Dr. King resided and where he was found in the first instance, and maybe you'll find that there's some more Dr. Kings there.
I credit the fact that I got schooled, I got brought up in the movement, in the civil rights movement, to give me the perspective and its traditions of American democracy.
I grew up hearing Dr. King. There was something about his voice, maybe about his appeal.
Dr. King had collected a lot of social themes and couplets and words and language, and he brought all the best of those years of speaking together in one gloriously magnificent moment.
I have a dream. When he spoke that day on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, he was preaching from his heart, from his soul, from his guts.
As the day of the march drew near, I stayed at the Willard Hotel where Dr. King was staying. Now, among his advisors, there were those who were suggesting, Martin, people are coming to the March on Washington because they've come in to hear you preach. And there were others, and they said, no, Dr. King, we have to give a kind of political direction, a treatise of where we are. I was part of that group. And he was being very gracious. He said, well, thank you so much, but I'm going to go up and work on my speech and counsel with the Lord. It's the day of the speech. I'm standing on the platform, about 50 feet behind him.
I had no credentials, but I kind of crawled up the steps and backed my way in.
Everybody was curious as to what this young man's going to say.
As you would expect, we'd have a large crowd like that. People had their own mini conversations going on, you know.
But when Dr. King got up, it got quiet. I mean, it was like you were at church.
He's introduced by A. Philip Randolph in this sonorous voice.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
I couldn't get to him to wink my eye or to say to him, Mike, come on, you can do it, you can do it.
And after a couple of perfunctory, introductory sentences, I'm listening to his speech.
50 years ago,
I concentrated on his words and what he was saying.
And as I'm listening, I see that he is reading. I had written out in longhand a possible opening paragraph.
America has given the Negro people a bad check.
And I did notice at a certain point, he starts off reading, and then at a certain moment,
Mahalia Jackson interrupted him while he's speaking. Tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream. His whole body language changed. And he changed to what I call the Baptist preacher stance. And I say to the person standing next to me, whoever that was, I said, these people don't know it, but they're about ready to go to church.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up.
Like the greatest jazz musician, he just does an incredible solo.
It was as if some transcendental terrestrial force had come down and taken over his body.
I didn't know that Dr. King had left the script, but that's what was in there.
And you stood in wonder as he spoke, as these words came out.
My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
But in his talking, and my mind wandering back to what I had been through, and when he started talking about his children, you know, I felt like, wow, he's talking about me.
You know, at bottom, Dr. King is a musician. And if he was reciting a telephone book, the rhythms and transition to phrasing, you know, would bring you to an emotional acceptance.
And once in Southwest Georgia, he heard people singing a song about over my head, I can see freedom in the air. And I think all of that just sort of came together.
With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation.
We live in realities lots of times, and somebody talks about a dream, you know, it gives a certain image, but the image that he gave was a future. And it wasn't beyond our reality to think that certain things could happen.
We were looking for leadership, and he was offering it.
The I Have a Dream speech was a summons, a call to the collective conscience of America. That we can be better than this.
Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Okay, folks, we are more than halfway there. Thank you, everyone, for participating. I'm going to remind again, this is our last MLK video. And if you're sitting in the bleachers,
wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful.
If you're sitting in bleachers, I need you to pay attention to the videos. I'm going to say this one more time. If you're sitting in the bleachers, I need you to watch and learn what the video is saying. Y'all can talk at lunchtime.
If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. Because everybody can serve.
Our country, this wonderful place, this little piece of real estate that we call America, was built, founded on service. We didn't necessarily wait for local, state, or the national government. We came together as a people, and we just did it.
I was one of 4 6-year-old children, girls, to integrate the public school system here in New Orleans in 1960. When I look at the Norman Rockwell painting and I see myself, I always say that the lesson I took away was a lesson that Dr. King tried to teach all of us. And that was that we should never look at a person and judge them by the color of their skin. I crossed a picket line, a mob every day for a whole year. There was a woman there to greet me. She did everything she could to make my day fun. She not only taught me, but she read stories to me, we played games. I knew that if I got past the mob and inside of the building, I was gonna have a great day, and it was because of her. So she showed me her heart. And I began to realize that there was no way she was like the people outside. I couldn't judge her the same way. And so I believe at that moment, I learned the lesson that Dr. King died trying to teach us.
In 1957, when I was 17 years old, I wrote Martin Luther King Jr. a letter. Told him I wanted to attend a little college about 10 miles from my home, and this school didn't admit black students. He wrote me back and sent me a round-trip Greyhound bus ticket. I traveled to Montgomery. I saw Dr. King standing behind a desk. He said to me, "Are you the boy from Troy? Are you John Lewis?" I was so scared I didn't know what to say or what to do. And I said, "Dr. King, I'm John Robert Lewis." I gave my whole name. He was so inspiring. He was so moving. And somehow, in some way, I wanted to become part of that movement, and I did.
For a long time, people fought to get the King holiday in, and it finally got achieved nearly 25 years ago. But it was sermons, talks, meetings, lunches, and one day I said to myself, this is wrong. If Martin Luther King were here, he'd say, that's not what I want on my day. I teamed up with John Lewis in the House and many Republican and Democratic colleagues of mine in the Senate.
We felt that Martin Luther King Jr. was a man of service, and his day, the federal holiday, should be a day of service.
When the Congress passed the legislation, it was sort of like reading wedding vows, that we were marrying a commitment. to serve the common good and to let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. We lost a great soul. He took chances. He lived daringly. He didn't let the fear of harassment or persecution deter his mission. He stayed focused and committed. While he died at a young age, he lived a long life in terms of service and witness. He piled into those 39 years, 100 years or more of service and preaching and loving, caring.
My father said an individual has not started to live until he or she can rise above the narrow confines of his or her individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of humanity. He would certainly applaud the fact that our nation has set aside a day where we can become more other-centered rather than self-centered and really focus on the broader concerns of humanity, because that's really the person that he was and the way that he lived. Nothing's insignificant. As you're celebrating the King Day, remember you are important, you're significant, and you have something that you can offer to make humanity a better place.
Okay, everyone, before we start the dismissal process, I want to let me get your attention, please. This MLK Assembly programming took a lot of awesome people to coordinate and put this together.